Alright. Hello, Void. I know I just talked to you just a second ago, but I'm going to have to keep going with this. Otherwise, I'm going to be honest, if I wait another day, I'm probably not going to remember enough about this movie to even talk about it. So, it's already been several hours. I'm really just going to have to get back into this. So, maybe we're here once more. This time we're going to hit the other half of that with Harvest of Fear. Well, they probably spent more than 50 cents on this one, at least. I'll give it that. And was it better than A Brush with Death? Yes. Yes, it was. Was it good? No. No, it was not. But it's at least a step up. And if I just leave these moldering in my collection for too long, I'll just never get around to seeing them, and that just doesn't sit right with me. Well, in for a dollar, right? Okay, so Harvest of Fear. Now this one, I think it's also 2006. No, 2004. My mistake. 2004, run-of-the-mill slasher flick. And this one tries to be smart and focus on twists. I will say it's a more straightforward by the numbers slasher, but it at least does a lot of those numbers correctly. That said, I still got some problems, but it at least does things better than A Brush with Death did. So, this one, it's about some murders that are taking place over the Harvest Festival. Now, 20 years ago, there was a spree of murders, and now there's a new spree kicking up at the same time of year, and a lot of the deaths are eerily similar to, well, they were 20 years ago. But the killer from 20 years ago was caught and then committed suicide. So, clearly we're not the same killer. What's going on? Not a bad setup, actually. And some of the things they did with it aren't bad. It just wasn't great. Now, one thing I do like, they don't immediately tell you the backstory. Usually, right once you get into these, and you hear that something terrible happened umpteen years ago, they immediately do a big info dump. Not the case here. This one, they start slowly. They're more alluding to things. Like, there's a murder right off the bat. And they mentioned, like, isn't this about when isn't this kind of like what happened 20 years ago? But then they don't answer immediately what it. But they keep going. Then they during the next thing, essentially, there's a new guy in town who's studying to be a forensic. Is trying to get into forensics. He's in medical school, and so he's there to operate on a cadaver. And oh, there's one of the murder victims right there. So okay, this is more than I was expecting. But hey. And so he starts asking questions and gets a little bit more. And so you get a taste of that. Okay, there was a murder spree 20 years ago. And then finally, a day or two goes by, and you finally get, well, three characters talking about it simultaneously as you keep cutting between three perspectives of what happened 20 years ago. That actually was decently done. Now, it is pretty obvious at the beginning who the killer is going to be. But I will say it does make a good job of making you forget that, as if there's numerous possibilities for who it is. Is it the father or brother of the killer who was convicted before, angry that he was wrongfully accused? Is it then our main forensics wannabe is the that we're following? He meets I guess the manager of the location. She's nice, but she's got the asshole cop boyfriend ex-boyfriend. Is it him? Is it the coroner that he's now working with? He does a lot of twists and turns for who the killer is, and it does do a good job throwing you around a bit. Better than I was expecting it to, in all honesty. And the characters actually are decently engaging. And as you get down towards the final chase scenes and whatnot, there was actually a hint of suspense, more than I was expecting it to be. But, well, overall, there are some problems. The killer himself isn't very interesting. It's just a guy in a mask who keeps showing up, and they don't do anything with him more than that. He doesn't have any of the presence of another silent killer, like say Jason Voorhees. He doesn't have any sort of personality, like a la Freddy Krueger. Even Mike Myers had the stoic standing aura he gave off. This character really doesn't have much of that. There's one scene where he does something that could be close to it, but really doesn't otherwise. The gore effects are subdued, but passable. But there's nothing special about them. And also, it has an annoying tendency of, whenever a dead body is showed, of rather than just lingering on it, it just sort of pauses, as if it's wants to hold on it for a second longer, but doesn't trust the actors not to breathe or something, so it was an awkward still shot every time. So that was a little odd. Also, there's something flashing. I'm trying to remember. Like I said, this movie is largely forgettable, so even hours later, I'm struggling to remember the details here. But there's this kind of flashing going on whenever our character was trying to do. What was it? It wasn't a phone call sort of thing. It was something like that, though. It was like trying to. There's like a bright flashing that was kind of mirroring what was going on. It was kind of annoying. I know that's not helpful. Sorry. This was kind of bland. Also, there's an opening and closing narration, which were random, pointless, and unnecessary. If anything, it kind of, as soon as that started up, it dropped my bar down right into one territory immediately. It did creep back up after that, but it was like right away, I was like, are we doing that? Why? And then you end with it too, which was just almost repeating a little bit of it. Anyway. So, Harvest of Fear, I'm not going to spoil this one either, because this one, it is an okay little mystery, so I don't want to give away who the killer is, and that's really all this movie has going for it. If you're paying attention, it ain't a surprise, but getting there, it was at least a more enjoyable ride than Brush with Death. With Death, when they reveal who it is, you had no way of guessing. This one, the pieces are there, and you just have to be paying attention. It's not a great mystery, and like some of it you wouldn't have been able to put together, but enough things are suspicious that you can kind of paint a picture. Again, that should have been a comment more for Brush with Death. Anyway, so Harvest of Fear, I'm able to give this one 2 MacGuffins. That sort of is what the killer's mask looks like. It's not actually that good. It's like that, but clearly plasticky rather than fleshy. So it looks like a Halloween mask, because that's probably all it is. But, hey. So, it tried to have some ideas. I can give it that. Harvest of Fear, 2 MacGuffins. If you're really bored, sure. Otherwise, this collection here is not worth your time. There, I saved you $1.